This is Marketing Jam, a podcast featuring the brightest minds in Canadian marketing.
So tell us your name, company you're with, and your role.
Okay, Theresa McLaughlin, and I'm with TD. Been with TD close to 5 years, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So as the Chief Marketing Officer at a bank, I need to ask this question.
Sure.
What are your favorite apps that you use on your smartphone right now?
Terrific.
Yeah.
So banking apps or non, or it doesn't really
Just
matter?
ones that maybe you can even jump between. What are your apps that you love and just find amazing, and apps that you need every day?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a couple. I have to start with a TD one, which is one of my favorites, which is called TD My Spend.
Okay.
And so what TD My Spend does is it tracks all of go to use my TD credit card, and then it tracks how I'm using that, and it gives me useful information and alerts to tell me and categorize my spending. So it tells me what do I normally spend on an average basis, and then it tracks against am I up or down, so that I can control, do I want to make this next spend? Am I trying to save for something? It helps with budgeting. Our customers love it. It is one of the most popular apps in Canada.
That's amazing.
In the App Store. Yeah. And so I use it quite often, every day, which is terrific. And then flipping to my personal life, I could not live without my Starbucks app.
Yes.
And I skip the line and go to the front, and my name is sitting there. When someone finally it dawned on me that I'm like, how are these people skipping the line? Can't live without that. So I'm an American. I have family back in the U.S. and I use Facebook to keep in touch with my growing nieces and nephews and keep an eye on what's going on with them. I have fallen in love with my Google suite of products, so particularly my Google Assistant that I can tell them add something to my grocery list, or what does my day look like. I think it's really indicative, I think, of what the world around us is going through, is how do we make these things interface with our lives, to use your words, things you just can't live without.
And do you have a Google Home yet?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Okay.
I have to say I spent quite a bit of time saying, tell me a joke, which is what everybody does.
Yes.
And then you immediately start to realize they're much more useful than that.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm using it on a regular basis. Recipes, the weather, what the stock market is doing, etc.
Yeah. My 4-year-old daughter discovered that she could ask it to play Lightning in the Thunder by Imagine Dragons. And the day I took the Google Home back to work, she missed her friend that would play her these songs for her. Yeah.
Yes, that's fabulous. Yeah. They start them young.
Yeah. So speaking about the TD banking app, I use an app called Mint. So because I'm not at TD, so would it be something similar to that, but actually native to the TD?
I'm still paused that you're not a TD customer. What do I need to do to get you to be a TD customer?
This is great. Always a marketer. It's amazing.
Yeah, so Mint is terrific in that it takes information from different sites and brings it together, and it aggregates it so that you have a useful place to look at things. I think what Mint doesn't do that the TD My Spend app does do, it uses machine learning to get to a place where we're providing you insights around your own spending, right? So that you can use it as a tool to say, do I feel good or bad about the fact that I'm, above my average, below my average? Do I understand and have a regular understanding of where my money is going? And that's what consumers are saying to us, is that they're looking for tools to help them be more confident in their spending, and they love it. Yeah,
Mint changed my wife and I's life.
Did it really?
We have a common talking point to talk about budgets. We have a common place to monitor our budgets.
Where it all comes together.
It kind of gamifies it at the end of the month. We see where we've saved and where we went over maybe. The frustrating thing is that with Mint, it's an American tool that is constantly telling me these American ads for American credit cards. Nothing against that, I just don't need them. And it doesn't recognize some of my Canadian financial institutions.
So, as I said, you need to become a TD customer, and I can do all those things, and we won't bother you with all the advertising, and it'll provide you with useful information.
No, it's incredible. I'm a big fan of that tool.
Yeah, excellent.
So we're here in March already in 2018.
I know, crazy.
I know, it's gone really fast. It's almost Easter. And the rest of the year, we're looking forward here. And some of the speakers here at DX3 have been looking into crystal balls and talking about the future. But I'd love to hear from you. What do you think 2018 looks like for marketing and from your perspective?
Well, there's an interesting stat that I had heard around there'll be more change in the next 5 years than there has been in the last 100.
Wow.
And I think we are in the middle of a revolution, not an evolution in terms of digital, right? Wow. Everything you and I just talked about, the fact that you get up and check your phone, most people go to bed, their phone is right there on their nightstand, they can't live without it. So you have to start with a mobile first, digital first, seamless, connected mindset. And I think that's a change in mindset for especially legacy companies that have been around for a really long time and have to transform themselves. The good news, I mean, the company I work for has a history of transforming itself, being ready for the future, which is our tagline. And so we're in the middle of doing that as well, right? How do we make sure we stay connected with our consumers in a digital world? What does that look like? Where, historically people would come into our stores and talk to us face to face, and that's what the bank meant to them. Now the journey that our customers are on is that they're using tools and devices, whether it's iPads or mobile apps, et cetera, alerts, to stay connected and engage with their money. But then when moments that really matter, let's say a mortgage, they want to talk to somebody. It's how do we connect the online and the offline to make those experiences relevant? So I think the long answer to your question is that for 2018, you'll hear me talk about this in my speech later today, is that it's about creating those personal connected experiences for consumers, right? You described your experience with Mint. That's very personal.
Very.
It's using the connection online and offline, and you're finding it very useful. That is the standard. It's not being set by banks anymore. It's being set by, you started by asking me about apps that are useful. That's the standard that consumers are looking for. How do we do that as a bank? And that's where we're spending a tremendous amount of our time.
Okay, that's incredible. When you look ahead, what are maybe some companies or brands that you look to that are ones that we should be watching or ones that you're watching?
So I think there's the ones that you would expect, but the one I'm watching right now is Amazon. So there was an announcement just 2 days ago where they're talking about getting into the checking account business. That's pretty transformational for us, right? If you look at Amazon getting into anything is transformational, right? So recently they have done partnerships where they, in the US, talk about getting into healthcare. And basically coming out and saying with Chase and others that healthcare is too expensive and we think we can figure out a smarter way. I think with Amazon puts their mind to it. They bought Whole Foods. They're transforming different industries. And so I think they're a smart competitor to watch. And when you think about those personalized experiences, don't you find Amazon to be personalized to you when you get on there and you order something and then the next time you look at your order and you say, wow, how did they know that I would like that?
Well, my wife just found out that I was looking at a bunch of Zelda characters and figurines, and she was wondering what I was doing, and I was like, you can't hide anything.
You can't hide. So they're a terrific one to watch. But then, I would tell you, and it may sound old school, but I also follow traditional companies that have a really long history of providing great customer experiences. And Ritz-Carlton's a great example of that. I went out and spent time with them and looked at their experience model, and it's a people-based business, and it's stood the test of time. Sometimes it's not, even though we are living in a digital world, sometimes personal really matters. Human really, really matters. And I think what's great about that, their turnover rate is less than 10% in a retail industry where turnover is 40 and 50%. So I think you have to stay open to all kinds of companies.
And when you're at the helm, marketing officer for TD, a large organization, it's like a large ship.
It is.
But when you're able to move and what you're seeing right now, what are the most things that you're most excited about this year? What are the things that you're like, we're going to try this year? We're going to try to do this little test. What's something maybe that we might be able to see as consumers this year coming down the pipe?
I would say going back to that personalized, connected experiences, you're going to see more and more things like TD MySpend that I talked to you about. TD For Me, where basically, an app that takes the whole bank and customizes it for you. So when you go through Union Station and you're looking for your train, this app gives you the ability to tell you and give you alerts right within the context of all your other banking, so that you don't have to sort of search around on your phone. It creates, using geo-targeting, the ability for us to provide relevant material to you that's useful. So I think that's where brands need to go, is engaging with consumers on content, not selling them things. And so you're going to see TD do more and more where we create those digital experiences that provide usefulness. You started this whole conversation by asking me, what can't I live without? We want to continue to do that. that, create tools that consumers just can't live without to help them not just with their banking, but their whole life.
And hopefully that will cause them to switch over, so your TD customers become your advocates.
That's true.
And your marketers.
Yeah, or grow their relationships with us, etc. Yes.
Okay. And then to gather new customers and to get new people interested in TD, what are some of the kind of tactics or strategies that you're looking at, like whether it's CSR or?
Yeah, so CSR is a good one. I was just going to actually mention that one. I think when you look at, for example, millennials, we know they care a lot about brands with purpose, and TD is a purpose-driven brand. We give away a lot of money in the community, and what we're spending a lot of time now talking about is how do we make that really matter? How do we make sure that wherever we give, we're not just giving money, but we're helping somebody prosper, and we're putting our emphasis on things that our customers really care about. So we're spending a tremendous amount of time across all the communities. We have over 85,000 colleagues. People probably don't know that, across North America alone, in over 2,500 branches and stores. And so we need to be a part of the communities where we live and work. And so CSR is hugely important in terms of telling that story and having people feel like we are a part of their vibrant community and helping them be ready for the future.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We did an experiment this last Christmas time at our office on a much smaller scale, where instead of giving a check to one charity, we used a tool called chimpnet. And we dispersed the donation we would have given to all of our employees, and then they chose which charity to give to.
I love that.
We got the tax receipt, which is what everyone wants. We made a donation.
I love it.
But our employees chose where it went.
Love it.
Yeah, the tool it didn't have the technology to tell me kind of the breakdown of, are my staff more interested in animals, people, religion, or the water or whatever. I would love that little infographic at the end. But the distribution model is amazing.
Your team must have loved it.
I don't know. Did you like it, Sheed? Yeah, he liked it. Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah. So it was just an interesting model of saying distributing control. Yeah. But is that scary in some ways? Like you don't control where it goes, because who knows? When you crowdsource information or you crowdsource where things go, is risk involved.
I think you're dead on about that, and I think banks are protecting people's money. Trust matters a lot, and so we have an obligation to make sure that we are really watching and being careful about using people's information, their data, protecting them. As more and more of our customers go online, protecting them from an identity perspective, et cetera. And so we take that incredibly seriously. But at the same time, your point about taking some risks, right? And getting out, using social, for example, using people like me, giving people the ability to rate products and reviews. Social media alone, you can't control the narrative.
No.
Brands are no longer about what we tell customers. It's about what they say about us. And so TD has really come a long way in terms of, they certainly understand that, and that's something that we, as we think about our social strategy, engaging with our customers the way they want to engage versus us telling them.
That's really cool.
Yeah, makes sense.
So people listening to the show, watching the show, they're wondering, how did you get to this position, and how can I be in that seat? Not your specific seat one day, they're not going to take your job from you, but how can they rise in the ranks to becoming a CMO of a large, multinational bank?
I would say a couple of things. First of all, is the world is changing in terms of the linear approach that I took to get to where I'm at, right? You rise up in your job and then you take the next level of responsibility. I've had a number of different roles in companies, from running P&Ls to working in distribution to working in marketing. All of those made me a better marketer because I rounded my experiences out. I find sometimes that people are too aggressive in saying, I want to be a VP, rather than saying, I want to get this experience I haven't had before. Put me in a place where I don't know anything about the topic, technology, data. I don't know anything about it, but I'm going to go spend 2 years there and forget my title, forget whether I have people reporting to me or whether I even have an office or a space to sit. I'm going to learn and grow because that's part of the future. That's what I think is most important, is being curious and being open to growing yourself in different ways.
I know there's been a lot of talk about women in different industries, like the movie industry, and a lot of talk in the media about that. I'd love for you to talk about women in marketing and their unique strengths I feel they bring to the table, and especially in PR and marketing worlds. And what are you seeing the woman's role in marketing is, and kind of some hope that you speak for women, and maybe encouraging other women to join the world of marketing and PR.
So TD in particular spends quite a bit of time thinking about diversity and inclusion. And inclusion is a place where you think about does everyone, regardless of your gender, your race, your sexuality, your thinking, your age, are you included? And do you feel like you can contribute? So to me, it's less about women in particular, and it's more about making sure that we have an inclusive culture. Women in leadership is definitely a place that we spend a lot of time making sure that women feel that they have a voice and that they can have an arm around them to help them take the next step. Because I think sometimes women feel like they have to have all the answers before they take the next job. And so like the Sheryl Sandberg book about Lean In, lots of good tips in there that I remember when I read it for the first time, I thought, I wish someone had told me that when I was in my 20s, right? And so I view it as an absolute obligation as a senior woman to help open the door and hold the door for the person behind me and help them come up. So I spend a tremendous amount of time, and part of it's the culture of the company I work for, but really mentoring and giving an arm around and helping people feel confident.
Okay. How could a young person in marketing find a mentor? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the old model of me knocking on your door and expecting that I'm going to meet with you every 2 weeks and take is not the right way. I think there are natural connections that you can find through projects that you're working on, etc. And you can just make those connections and say, hey, can we have a coffee? And again, I work for a company where I drink a lot of caffeine. We have a lot of coffees to get people to sit down and just say, hey, let me help you understand what you need to do to get to the next level. I'd say the most important thing about that, though, is being open to feedback. Not everybody is open to feedback. Sometimes your aspirations as to where you want to go versus what your skill sets are, there's a mismatch. So you have to be open to figuring out what you need to do to take those left and right turns to get there.
And speaking of mentoring, some people find mentors through books. Is there any books that you'd recommend, or blogs or publications, magazines?
So I think what's most important today is that you remain curious and that you look at things outside your comfort zone. So I actually had other people help me populate my Twitter feed to make sure that I am not looking at things that I would be comfortable with. And so I follow all kinds of different sites and publications. When I hear a great speaker, I always ask them, who do you follow? And then I start following. And in the morning, you can get a lot of different clips on different topics, from traditional places like Gartner that's telling you what's happening to to non-traditional sites and followers. I mean, look at YouTube alone. Even Google, I get regular newsletters from Google on what are my customers searching for? Because if I understand what they're searching for, I understand how they're thinking. And so just even following analytics from some of my partners is something I spend a bit of time in the morning with a coffee doing.
No, it's fascinating. Google Trends telling us what, and even misspellings of what people are searching for.
Yeah, exactly.
And you mentioned a great book by Sheryl Sandberg. Is there other books that you think that are kind of must-reads? Or?
So I finished one recently. I don't think I have the name quite right, but it's the gist of it is the future 21st century companies. And it just talked about how the world is changing dramatically in every single industry. I went to Singularity University recently here in Toronto. And you take a step back and you think about what robotics and machine learning, how that's going to change everything from medicine to, it already has, right? The Ubers of the world, the transportation industry. Every industry is going through that level of transformation. But when you take a giant step back and you read a book that's looking at how these trends are being applied across industries, you realize what an incredibly exciting time we're living in right now. And as a marketer, that connection you're making with consumers is a really noble and important one, and you've got to apply science and data and technology to sort of be a future-oriented marketer. So that was a good one, that book.
And do you follow any podcasts at the moment?
I follow, again, a variety of them. TEDx is actually one of my favorites. So I get on a treadmill in the morning, and it makes, to be honest, it makes the hour go by. But you can really open your mind to just a variety of different topics. And what I love about that, or NPR has a great program. It's just, I really like listening to real people talk about real experiences. I think it's very easy, particularly in marketing, to read data and not really know human stories in their own terms. So those are the ones that I find most interesting.
And what are your thoughts on the fintech stuff that's coming up? Because it sounds like you guys yourselves are a fintech. Like you're you're building new tech, you're trying new things?
Yeah, I wouldn't call us a fintech, but we are partnering with fintechs. There was a time where I think people were trying to think through the role that fintech played with large organizations like mine. We're now we just acquired a company called Layer 6, which is a machine learning and AI company, and we're working with them to do some really progressive things. So I think for us, it's about how do we partner with fintechs to take it to the next level.
That's awesome. And it's kind of the best of both worlds.
It is, for sure. for sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to leave with our listeners?
No, I'm excited to be here. Really terrific to opportunity to spend some time in my topic today. I'm going to be talking about marketing talent, which is everything. That's really all a company is, and how you develop that talent and take it to the next level. And so I'm very fortunate to work for an organization that puts talent first.
That's amazing. Any little snippets that you leave with people about developing talent?
The only thing I would say to you is that even just in thinking about going to companies, the best piece of advice I was given was don't join a job, join a company. Really think through what that company is, look at the track record. And so I know the people at the company I work with have had multiple careers because they move them around, and they say great leaders can learn. And so they match them with subject matter experts. So if you can get into an organization that's willing to bet on you and put you in different places and get you completely out of your comfort zone early in your career, that's hugely important. But I see people falling in love with a title or a particular job. And I would just say think through what's a brand you want to be associated with.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on the Marketing Jam show.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
Appreciate
terrific.
Your time, and we hope the rest of the day goes great for you.
Terrific. Thank you again.